Hey folks, so for almost as long as there have been guns, those guns have been equipped with sights. Now, once upon a time, until rifled barrels really started taking over that scene, it was just a front sight. And you can still see evidence of what I'm talking about. And you go look at like a shotgun, right? It's only got a front bead. That's how they are. So once rifle barrels started taking over, we really started seeing more of the rear sight come into play. Now, as those rifles continue to get more accurate over time, we started to see telescopic sights being installed, what we refer to as scopes today. Now, today, the modern hunting rifle, or any modern rifle for that matter, is more accurate than it has ever been. So that is a question. If scopes let us shoot further than we could ever hope to with the eye, why do we even want iron sights? Today we're seeing more and more guns produced that don't even have iron sights as an option. Has a modern gun evolved beyond iron sights? Well, that's what I want to talk about in today's video of Ask Gunsmith. Let's get into it. Alright folks, my name's Henry. I'm with Great Plains Weaponry. And like I said in the beginning of the video, I just want to take a minute and cover the topic of iron sights on the modern rifle. So let's take a step back and let's go over iron sights, because some people may not know what they are. Some people may have just never heard the term iron sight. Sometimes they're referred to as open sights, or a myriad of other names depending on where you're from, where you grew up, such as that. So let's just take a second here and let's go over that topic. What are iron sights? So let's start off with something simple. This is an 1873 Winchester. They are clear here. All the guns on the table cleared prior to the video. So this is the only one I think we're going to safely check on film here, but let's lock that guy back up. So iron sights. Well, I'm trying to include a picture of what it looks like a little bit more down the line, but we have a fixed rear sight, and now fixed is a loose term. It does have a dovetailed slot. We can drift it left and right. Same as up here in the front. Now if we want to adjust the front sight, which is that little peg looking guy right there, for elevation, typically we'll file that dude down. Another option is we can always raise up the rear sight, and you'll see a lot of them. I use my face as a backstop here. Has this little ramp in it. That a little closer to the camera there. And that little stair-step ramp helps us raise the rear sight up or down, depending on where it's already at. And that's going to help us adjust for elevation for 99% of what we need. Sometimes you'll see a little sight here in the back stand up just like that right there. It's a peep sight, and it's going to have plenty of adjustment in it. We'll talk about peep sights here shortly. So let's take a second though, and let's talk about why do we even have iron sights? So iron sights are a little more than just a fixed point of reference that lets us identify where our bullet's going to go. Our iron sights tell us where the bullet's going to go, and they do that by matching the point of impact at a specific distance, and lets us put that point of impact right on our target and send our bullet do whatever it's supposed to do. Now, we refer to that as steering. You know, we will steer the barrel or steer the bullet towards that target. We're taking aim of that target, but all we're doing is we're making sure the bullet's trajectory and the target intersect at a preferred point. Now, there's some variation in that, but that's for the most part all they really do. So what are they good for, right? Why not just have a scope? What is the benefit of an iron sight? Well, if you ever dropped your gun and it landed on a scope, and maybe that scope looked a little different, had a couple extra curves in it wasn't supposed to, or maybe it had extra crosshairs in the front, you'll understand scopes are glass. We're referred to as glass on a rifle. They're relatively fragile. Not to be mistaken with fragile, relatively fragile. Relative to what? That's always the important question. Relative has to have a frame of reference. Relative to iron sights. Iron sights are incredibly durable. They're very difficult to bump or knock out of alignment. I would need a brass punch to move that iron sight, or that one. I would break it before I moved it by drop. That's an incredibly difficult thing to do. It is steel. Sometimes it'll be brass, a little less durable, a lot easier to adjust. You'll find brass in the ones you have to file for the front sight. That's common there. Or handguns will still have steel front sights that have to be filed, again, to prevent you from removing too much material too fast. So what is the difference between iron sights and an optic? Well, optics generally fall into one of two categories. Magnified, meaning they make your object appear X number of times bigger, or electrified. So they use some form of a light and a battery, an electronic, to mitigate how they operate and basically cast your point of aim. Now, there are a few reasons we might prefer one of these, and some of these may fall in line with a hunting scenario, some of them may fall in line with a defense scenario. Different factors come into play. So we've already talked about they are very, very difficult to knock out of alignment. So let's talk about, for just a second, some of the other adverse conditions we may find ourselves in. So rain, inclement weather, fog. Your iron sights really don't care. They're limited by your eyeball. If you have glasses, your eyeball's improved, your iron sights are improved. They don't care about astigmatism. If you have astigmatism, it's non-electrified. It's not casting any light, not going to have that starbursting effect. So that is going to be one of the nice factors that go into play with iron sights. Now, let's take a second, let's step back, and we're going to go over some of the things that we can usually find on iron sights. So I'm going to cut the video here. I'm going to set up some different guns so we can talk about different iron sights that we have and different features those iron sights may have. We got a couple of different rifles laid out here on the table in front of us. We've already talked about the 1873. We've shown you those iron sights. Those are the semi-buckhorn. Those are the easiest ones to see on camera here just because they are the biggest. And then we're going to have, well, deer rifle again. Now you'll see that one has a thing over the front there. That is just a hood, and that prevents too much light from getting into the iron sight itself. We still have our adjustable plate here on the rear. And we will also see there is a little white triangle, and that coincides. If we can get that guy to pick up. Nope. So my front sight here has a red dot on it. And by lining up that red dot with this white triangle here on the rear, it helps me find out that I'm in alignment, and then I'm ready to take that shot. Once we take that shot, we'll know whether or not our elevation was true. Spend some time, practice with your gun, you'll learn its elevation, and that won't be an issue. That one, set up for a point blank zero. Means it's going to keep me within the ballpark all the way out as far as I would ever want to shoot it. Now, your point blank zero is going to come down to your target. I'm primarily shooting at deer. I'm trying to play in a 6-inch-ish circle. I keep that gun within 3 inches. Anything that breaks a 3-inch line is no longer in my point blank zero. And according to the ballistic calculator, that should get me out to about 225. I don't trust that. Having shot this gun, I'll tell you, with a variety of loads, my safe number is about 175, 180. I don't want to even shoot that far. As long as it crosses the line at 150, I'm good. I have a scope that goes on that. We'll talk about that in the next video when we talk about scopes and optics. So now we're going to go back. We're going to look at the AR. And this is that peep sight. Now, see if I can line those sights up here. Pretty difficult to pick up that front sight. But that little circle there in the back lines up with the front sight point here in the front. And as long as that little post is centered up in the circle, I am aligned. Now, it is a lot easier to line that guy up in the center than you might think. Your eye naturally wants to center that thing. So, as long as it looks centered, it's probably centered. Now, there's two sizes of aperture on that particular rifle. There's a wide and there's a narrow. Now, the wide aperture is what we call your CQB aperture on an AR, or your low distance, your close distance, your short distance, whatever you want to call that. Typically 0 to 200. And that is the biggest window, it's the fastest to acquire, and it'll get you not quite as precise, but it'll get you there faster. And we're going to go into some other details on why that's important. But the small aperture is your 300 plus, your 200 plus, however your gun may word it, your long range, your distance. There's a number of those things that can come into naming those types of deals, and a lot of it has to do with your culture you brought up in, the environment, the people, things such as that, that'll determine what you call these things. But at the end of the day, they are the same, they're just different reference words. So the narrow one is going to help you get that dot, or that post, a little bit closer to the center, and help you hold that true point of aim out to a little bit further distance. They typically also are going to be at a little bit of a raised point, account for some of that drop, but that can vary from site to site. Some of them will actually have an adjustment knob things like that. But again, that's your peep sight. We've gone over some colored sight options that help with low light, such, and we've gone over the semi-buckhorn, which are more or less traditional iron sights. But for the sake of this video, if I have to show iron sights, that's the one I'm using because it's the easiest one to get up on camera. Why don't all modern guns come with iron sights then, right? Obviously, that's the important question here. Does my gun need iron sights? So why don't they come with iron sights? Well, simple. You got to mill in a dovetail and either mill in a rear dovetail or mount some screws and some silver solder. There's a bunch of stuff that different ways to attach these iron sights. But the important thing to remember what that is, they take time. And some of them take tooling, some of them take special materials. Silver solder gets its name because there's a lot of silver in it. Silver is expensive. So it cuts down the cost of manufacturing. You like a $500 hunting rifle? Probably not going to come with iron sights. You have an $900 hunting rifle? Might come with iron sights. Might just come with the dovetails to put iron sights in. Sometimes you can spend $3,000 on a rifle and still not get iron sight slots. Seen it, owned them. Not bad. They just have a different purpose. So how does that really affect anything, right? I mean, let's say it takes 5 minutes extra to set up and mill dovetail slots in. Well, that's 5 minutes. I will say it raises the cost of production of that gun 15%. Nah, not even 5%. 5%, okay? So we'll say we had a $1,000 gun. Now raise it by 5%, it's a $1,200 gun. Cost. Now, federal government's going to take a cut of that, called the Firearms and Ammunition Excise Tax, and that is a fee. Now, with a rifle, that would be at 11% added to the sale price. So we're going to add that price in. Well, now they still want to make their money. Standard kind of margin in the gun market here, not really as high as people might think. So you walk into a gun store, you see a gun on the shelf, and think, man, they must be making a lot of money. Most guns actually yield 10 to 12%. 18 is the goal, 20 is the magic number. Most guns are going to yield, we'll say 12 to 15%. They don't pull that much. When you see a company giving a 10% discount on a gun, that's a big deal. They're trying to move that gun. Now, it could have been there a long time. Maybe it didn't sell as well as they thought it would, and they ordered a bunch. Maybe it's just been on the floor too long and they just need it gone. But 10%, they're selling it almost cost. You know, it's not, they're not going to see a whole lot there. So if you see a gun on sale for 10%, think I'll just wait for it to go down to 15%, probably not going to happen. 10% if it doesn't sell, they're going to sell it online. Word of advice for you. Now, let's go over some pros and cons on why we may or may not want iron sights. Sorry about that cut. I don't much care for yellow jackets. That dude needed to go away. He's in the forever box now. So, back to the topic on hand. Pros and cons. Iron sights. We'll start with some cons. Limited to your eyesight. No version of it. If you've got terrible eyesight and all you have is iron sights, you're not shooting very far. And you're probably not going to shoot even that far very accurately. Nothing wrong with that. Handgun, perfectly fine. Hunting rifle, probably okay. You'll know your distance better than me. But now, when we start talking distance shooting, 300, 400, 500 yards, if you can't see it, you can't hit it. No version of it where that changes. So, how do we make sure we hit what we're aiming for? Well, we got to zero the iron sights. Well, that's con number 2. Remember I said they're difficult to move? I meant it. You got to zero them. That means you have to move them. Got to move them. Means they have to move. Difficult to move. That can be a problem. Once they're set, difficult to unmove, right? I mean, that's always an important factor. But we're going to list that as a con because it can be quite irritating because with a scope, a dot, something, there's a dial, you tick it, you know how far that tick moves. With this, tap, tap with a brass punch, take it out, fire 3 rounds. Where are we at? All right, tap, tap with a brass punch. Up, moved it too far. All right, back it up, tap, tap, brass punch, fire 3 more rounds. Moved it back too far. Back and forth until you get it just right, and then you leave it. Leave it alone. Stop touching it. You open up the screw or you tap it again. It's all for naught. Now, let's talk a little bit about tactical use and hunting use. Tactical use. This is supposed to be a streamlined gun to the best of its ability. If you got to swing it up quick, we want nothing. that's going to hang up or snag. We got a nice rounded bell of the optic here. It's that Trijicon MRO. Love this thing. Nice rounded bell. You got the nice contoured. You got a little bit of stuff here, but they're broken edges. Got the flashlight up here. It'll roll nice. Rounded muzzle device, and then we got iron sights. What we commonly refer to in the training environment as snag points. Now the AR tactical stuff, it's kind of worked out amongst the military. We buffed that out a long time ago. But when we start talking about hunting rifles, that is an island. It's referred to as an island. That is an island-style rear sight. She sits that high up above the bore, and that's enough to hang on a hunting bag. When we get up here to the front sight, I mean, Jesus, that dude's huge. Got a good, hard, rigid point in the front, good, hard, rigid point in the back. You whack that dude on a tree, you're breaking the stick. I mean, you're going to deflect it. You're making noise. Snag points. A few guns are worse snag points than a semi-buckhorn sight. See if I can get that dude to show up. Just how pointy those dudes are. They are almost sharp. Here in the front, now this one doesn't have a brass bead. Sometimes they have a brass bead, and that does make it a little better. But yeah, it is just a shark fin of steel right there, and it's got a sharp point on it. It is a snag point. No version of it, it's a snag point. Make it difficult getting it out of your case. Make it difficult walking through the woods. The biggest thing, though, is hanging on clothing. That's always going to be the bigger problem there. You hang it up on some clothing, and it's not at the end of the world. It's inconvenient, mildly irritating. Your semi-buckhorn sight, that can actually rip your clothing from experience. Keep it away from seams. Now, let's go over some of the pros, because I personally love iron sights. You'll see on my AR, very expensive setup. ScalarWorks iron sights. We're talking $250, $300 worth of iron sights. Why? Well, because I like to be able to shoot things that are shooting at me. I think that's an important thing. I mean, you may or may not know, I spent some time in the infantry. So, iron sights are important. Optics are fun. When optics go down, I should still be able to use my iron sights. I prefer fixed sights just because I don't like flip-ups. I've seen the flip-ups break, springs go out, or they start, instead of stopping at 90 degrees, they lean forward a little bit, your gyro's all trashed. I prefer fixed sights. It's a preference thing. Nothing wrong with iron sights, I just don't like them. Plenty of guns use them to great effect. I think every AR type platform, the M4 I had, rear flip-up sight, unless we got fancy and wanted to put a carry handle on the back, but that was more so just for jokes than anything, because we found some in an armory locker or something. Not either way. Yeah, I like iron sights. Iron sights are important to me because they're reliable. I need iron sights on my AR because if my optic does what optics do, and that is run out of battery, I'd still like to be able to shoot back. If I'm out hunting and the fog starts setting in, my scope is limited to the fog, as are my eyes. Visible light is now obscured. Well, I could use my scope and just make sure I'm shooting closer in, or I can take the scope off and I can use iron sights because of, pro, and that they're fast. Iron sights are faster. You'll be able to get into your iron sights faster than you'll be able to get into a scope. Iron sights are going to be faster. They're going to be more reliable. Again, they can't die. They can't fog out. They can't get submerged or lose their purge or whatever it may be with scopes. They are more reliable. So it brings us to our next pro here is the increased kind of adverse condition resistance, if you want to give a bunch of names to it. Basically, back to, again, they're more durable, but in this case, we're going to talk more about specific condition where I'll go over cons with scopes. Some of you guys might have experienced this, especially you long-term hunter types, the guys who go out for 4 or 5 days at a time, stay in a cabin, hunt in the woods around the cabin. You'll know what I'm talking about. You take that really nice scope inside with you after a long morning or night of hunting, set it up, you hang out, you're inside, you're eating, you go to sleep, you wake up in the next morning, you get ready to go out, you step outside, lens is fogged out. You gotta wait. Well, that's not good. Now we're waiting for our scopes to clear up. We're dead in the water until we do. All right, not such a big deal on purge scopes, but a lot of times that's how you find out that a scope lost its purge. And that's, in case anybody's wondering, when you see nitrogen purge, argon purge, that's specifically what they're trying to avoid, is that exact effect right there. Most hunting scopes will lose their purge over the course of their life. The O-rings dry out, the gas leaks, you know, atmospheric air gets inside, and boom, it's standard air now. Iron sights don't have that problem. You take them wherever. You can go swimming with them, pull them out of the water, and they'll work just as well as before they went in. Might even work better depending on how much mud you had on your gun. So that's one of the things that I like about them. I'm a huge fan of iron sights for hunting in low light and just rapid fire conditions. You know, in that early morning period, you're just getting out there. I don't know where you guys are at, but here in Kansas, our legal hours are 30 minutes before, 30 minutes after sunrise, sunset. I'm going to get out there early. It's going to be dark, not 30 minutes before sunrise. It's going to be 2 hours before sunrise. So once that 30-minute mark hits, and you guys will know it, there's a special name for it that the astronomy guys will know. Some kind of weird name for a sunrise, but basically the sky is lit, but the sun has not broken the horizon. But in that time, shadows are all over the place because the sun's not out yet, but it's lit the sky. So it's legal time to shoot. There's not a whole lot of light floating around for us to use, though. Iron sights are good for that because you can't see very far anyways, even with the scope, because again, you got early morning fog, you got limited light, you got lots of shadows, you have limited visibility at its finest. Iron sights are great there, especially that orange front. It's easy to find, even in low light. Any kind of light that hits it, it's a fluorescent paint, so it glows. It's like a beacon. So you get it lined up, good to go. That's a big reason I like iron sights on a hunting gun. Now, one thing I do want to be very clear about before we close this video here is we don't have to choose. In a previous video, we talked about hunting rifles a little bit, and I mentioned that on my hunting rifle, I have these little bases up here, and they allow me to take my scope off and put my scope on, and that scope will hold about a quarter minute true from original zero, and it does have to be checked, and somewhat periodically, but you don't have to choose. They are, again, I've got a red dot sitting on it with iron sights. Now, on the 1873, we don't get a choice. We get iron sights unless we want to get some fancy mill work done. We could always mount a little Picatinny rail up there, maybe get a folding rear sight, mount a red dot to it. I've seen it. It's doable. It's not too difficult to work even, especially with that thick octagon barrel. This one's a 45, but if you had a 38, it'd be a lot easier. So you get that option. It can be done. A lot of extra effort, a lot of extra work, but might be worth it to you. If any of you guys have never found out through classes or instruction or cruising the interweb, lever action gun is actually a wonderful fighting rifle. I know I'm going to hear a lot of hate from that in the comments, but I encourage you, take a scout rifle course at some point and you'll find out. Now, pistol caliber, limited range again, but when you start talking a 30-30, 45-70 may be kind of punishing, but it can be done. 32 Winchester Special, things like that. And today you have the Browning series, the BLR families, and 308, 30-06, 270, 7mm 08, all the different numbers there. They hold a detachable magazine even. Fantastic. I would strongly encourage you guys to take one of those courses if you haven't. If you've never heard of them, look into them. Scout hunting, or you get the Scout or General Purpose Rifle, something along those lines. You'll typically find them called. But basically, how to fight with your hunting rifle is what those courses are. Wonderful courses. Take one. They're important. Training is always good. No such thing as too much of it. Even if you think you know everything, take a course, you'll find out you didn't know as much as you thought you did, and you leave with any more questions you didn't even know existed. Wonderful classes. Providing you good instructors. I know a couple of good instructors, and I'd hate to be on the receiving end of them catching a gunfight, but if I could accumulate 2 ounces of the knowledge they've forgotten, I wouldn't be in this career field. Now, let's go ahead and get ready to close this out. So we've talked about some guns, we've talked about different iron sights. Big takeaway, iron sights aren't for everybody. They're for me. I love iron sights. They might be for you. Even if you don't like iron sights, understand their importance and understand their drawbacks, their limitations. They're always very important. You have to know the pros and the minuses of your equipment under any circumstance. I prefer iron sights. for a hunting rifle. I enjoy iron sights for a general purpose rifle. But when it comes down to it, I will want a red dot or a scope from doing any kind of work with that gun. So if it's a varmint control gun, I want an optic. If it's, if I'm hunting an open field in one of these counties here in Kansas and I can see 200 yards, I want a scope. I need iron sights above all else. Prime example, it took me almost 2 years to track down my 700 because I wanted one in 30-06 with screw holes I can mount scope bases to, and I wanted iron sights. And I refused to settle on anything less. Now, it didn't have to be a 700. I wasn't necessarily married to the 700. I'd prefer 700. Also, I was looking for a Winchester Model 70. Something that pre-64 family, because I wanted a 3-position safety. Well, I'm at some point going to modify this guy to accept 3-position safety duty to being a gunsmith. We can do that. Downside of being a gunsmith, time. Working on my own guns is making projects for myself. Is what it is. So at some point, I'll take a vacation so that I can work. But till then, thanks for sitting along with this rant with me. If you got some value out of this video on iron sights on the modern rifle, then please like, comment, subscribe. Let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree, or have a different outlook on things. I'd love to hear about it. We're all students of life here. So if this is the kind of content you guys like, be sure to let us know. You can do that through like, subscribe, comments are my preferred way of doing something like that. So then I can direct feedback there. But yeah, if you guys have any suggestions on videos in the future, by all means, let us know. Again, comments are an amazing communication tool. So I'm Henry, Great Plains Weaponry, and I hope you enjoyed our video today on iron sights on the modern rifle. Thank you.